What is going on, gentlemen? Welcome to another episode here at the Masculine Health Solutions Podcast. I hope you guys are doing fantastic. And again, I'm thankful for everybody that's been tuning in. Got a lot of good stuff lined up for the very, very near future. In the very, very near future, I'm going to bring a lot of people talking about Tantra, sacred sexuality, and a whole bunch of good things that I think you guys will be appreciative of. And obviously the narrative, or not the narrative, I don't like using that word because as of late, it seems that the narratives that are going around aren't the greatest. Me being in Canada, I could tell you all about it. But yes, it is a little bit of madness going on in Canada, but it is what it is. You know what? We just got to focus on our lives and how we can continue to better ourselves as men. Because at the end of the day, you know what? All you are is who you are, and you're kind of a singular being. You know, you came into this world by yourself, and it is what it is. Now, enough of the somber stuff. What I want to talk about today came in regards to a question that I had. And this question came in via the DMs. Again, keep hitting me up on Instagram. A lot of stuff. I know I got to catch up. I know I got to keep answering these questions as quickly as they come, you know, and at the same time, though, it gives me it's a great way for me to answer these questions via podcast, just because I find that I can truly explain myself a little bit better. And in regards to the question that came up, it was, hey man, what do you recommend as a fat burner? And I asked him, how much money are you willing to spend, right? And he said, oh, I'll spend anywhere from like 60 to $100. And you know, I thought about that, and I was like, "Yo, man, if you really are committed, I'm like, hey, you want to get to 8% body fat? Set like, how low do you want to go, brother?" And he responded with, "Oh, as low as I possibly can, man. You know, I'm really looking forward to getting a fat burner to really get me started on my fat burning journey." And I told him, like, hey, man, you know what? Take those $70 that you're gonna spend on a fat burner and get yourself a food scale, right? And he was kind of like, well, you know, is there a fat burner I could take, man? And I said, nah, brother, listen, man. And what I want to discuss with you guys today is the best way, in my opinion, for anybody on this planet to burn fat. Obviously, I do understand that there are other things that may get in the way of your fat burning, right? I do understand that different people out there may have different issues that may be keeping them from losing weight. One of the biggest ones that's out there that a lot of people don't want to talk about, but it's stress. Oftentimes, if you're stressed out, you're probably not going to burn as much fat as you possibly can. The reason for that is your stress hormones, aka cortisol, is going to be up nice and high. And sometimes it gets in the way of you being able to burn fat, right? And it's something a lot of people don't take into consideration, but it is one of those things that needs to be addressed if you do want to burn fat or lose weight, period, right? And the best way to go about it is to get the stress out of your lives, man. Granted, it's easier said than done. And I know this because, hey, man, I got 2 kids, my wife, I got a full-time job, and I do all kinds of things. And I try to make sure that I can stay, you know, even Stevens in my mind. And sometimes it's difficult. But what I will recommend or bring to the table in this case is meditation, right? I think it's I think it's extremely underrated, and I do know it's kind of grown in popularity. However, I don't feel like a lot of people have like a some type of meditation or meditation ritual, I guess, so to speak, like almost like a 5 to 10 minute wind down or wind up if you're about to start your day. But I feel that if you integrate meditation for anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes into your day, man, it will make your day so much better. I myself love to take a little meditation break on my breaks. I will do a brain and heart coherence meditation, and man, I just feel rejuvenated. I feel great. I feel awesome, and I can go back to continuing my workday, and I feel great. You know, and a lot of people will say, "Hey, man, I don't have a space to do it." If you got a car, just sit in your car, man. Like find a corner. I myself, you know, I don't like to sit in the lunchroom because I don't need any more noise. I like to find a little place where I can just kind of de-stress and do something for my mind. The other thing that I do enjoy doing is drawing or reading. And the reason why I enjoy these things is that as a kid, man, like that's all I really had. My parents took away the TV because I was addicted to it. Man, as a 6-year old, I could sit there and watch Star Wars over and over and over again because my dad had to record on a VHS, and I would just sit there and I just keep watching the same old thing. We didn't even have cable TV, man. I would just watch whatever was on because I was just a consumer. However, now that I've kind of grown up a little bit, hopefully, um, I find that, and I was reading about how drawing or expressing yourself through art helps to really, get your brain in a nice place, and ease that stress away. And drawing and reading or painting or knitting, like perfect example of a guy that I know that knits, right? He's a hardcore death metal personal trainer where, he's got Slayer shirts, he's got like dreadlocks, he's this crazy dude. And I'm like, yo, Randy, what do you do to de-stress? And he's like, yo, man, I like to knit. And I was like, really? Word. And he's like, yeah, don't worry, I'll make you a hat, bro. And I was like, no way, man, this guy knits. Right. So what I'm getting at here is you got to find something to just kind of de-stress yourself, whatever that may be, whether it's reading, drawing, something that'll just kind of get your mind off of things. Another perfect way to burn fat, which is something I want to bring back to the table, something I mentioned before, and probably one of the most underrated things that you could do is just go for a walk. It's good for your brain, brings the hormone levels down. In fact, in Japan, it's actually recommended as a way to treat depression is go for a walk in a heavily forested area so you can just oxygenate all your cells. So again, meditation, expressing yourself through art, whatever that art may be. Dancing is fun. I like dancing with my wife. It's a good time. Break out the salsa, we'll have a good time, mix it up. And hopefully we'll have sexy time after. A man's got to be optimistic. And again, going for a walk, a great thing to do. And obviously, when you go for a walk, you are also in that aerobic zone, right? And in your aerobic or fatty acid oxidative zone, I guess, you're using fat. You're using fat to burn. Obviously, it's not as sexy or as cool as HIIT cardio and all that stuff that they make it out to be. However, a human being can walk for hours and days on end. You can't really sprint for all that long. And a lot of people and a lot of athletes, that I've trained in the day back in the day as well, like high performance athletes, they all talked about how, hey, I want to do the hardcore stuff. I want to do medicine ball throws and I want to do interval training and this, that, and the other and get on the assault bike. And I'm like, well, if you take a step back, you will actually find out that by doing this long, kind of drawn out cardio that isn't as fun, you will have great effects too. And guess what? Your chances of injury go down. You can't always go balls to the wall. But as a young bull, back in the day, I could tell you that I was all about that life. Everything's super intense. And sometimes you almost got to take a step back and look at the way that you're training and realize that if I tone it down just a little bit, I will actually get more out of it. Sounds kind of counterintuitive. However, the effects are vast and they are kind of undeniable. Just ask any bodybuilder at the highest level what they do. You'll see a lot of them don't do high intensity, don't do high HIIT training, right? High intensity interval training. And for the most part, HIIT training is done wrong anyways, where most guys don't even go balls to the wall for that 10 to 30 second, use up all the ATP or creatine phosphate, and then just kind of relax for about 4 minutes. Most guys don't do that. Most people don't do that, right? Women included. For the most part, they're just doing basically their own version of interval training. There's nothing wrong with that. It's still going to be effective. It's still going to be burning calories. However, when you do the low intensity stuff, you will get better effects in the long run. And as far as sustainability goes, man, you could do it for a long, long time, right? So forget the fat burner and break out your walking shoes. But going back to what I was saying and what started this whole thing off, the weight scale, if you are prepared to weigh $70 to $100 on a pill, which for the most part, again, I'm never saying that a supplement is not needed or that it's not necessary, but there is a time and place for it. And for me, the only time that I would really recommend that is if you're already at 10% body fat, you want to bust through a plateau, take it to the next level. You want to keep it natural. You don't want to do any of these hardcore drugs like clenbuterol or T3 or whatever those things, other ones that exist. Those are the only two that I know of for fat burning. But you don't want to go down that road, right? So a fat burner would be great in that, or from that regard, right? But if you're gonna do a fat burner and you're starting off and you're 20% body fat, like, yo, get your diet in check first. The most important thing that you can do, which will benefit you more than getting a fat burner, is just getting your diet in check. Hence the reason why I say break out the weight scale, the food scale, right? Get the food scale out, get my FitnessPal out, right? Pair those two together, get your diet on track, and that will help you burn way more fat than a fat burner ever can or will, right? Because I can guarantee you, if you get a fat burner, you're still gonna be jiggling around, a month after. A lot of guys will bring it out and be like, "Yo, man, I'm gonna get ripped off this." And I'm telling you this out of experience because, when I was about 240, 250 at one point, I'm like, yeah, man, I'm gonna take this fat burner. And I knew better, but I'm just like, you know what? I believe it. I saw it on a commercial. I think it was like a Zion's pill, the one that I took, man. And, like, all that stuff has, for the most part, going back to the ingredients, usually it has some type of usually it's got caffeine, some type of thermogenic, right? So it might have like capsaicin, I believe, which is the stuff that they actually take out of peppers, right? So it might have a little bit of that sprinkled on, might have a little bit of some jumbo juice, some proprietary blend that may have come together. It's got like a combination of cinnamon, maybe they throw in a little bit of beta alanine, just stuff that will make you feel a little bit of a buzz, right? And usually it's just tons of caffeine. Back in the day when they had ephedrine, hydroxycut, the original formula was loaded with those two things. Not the greatest things for you. However, it would help if you were at that 10% body fat level. And a lot of guys don't realize that at 10% body fat, for the most part, I mean, you're pretty shredded at that point. At 10%, man, most guys are pretty ripped. The guys that you see that are stage ready and could jump on a bodybuilding stage are usually around 7 down to 5% body fat. I mean, obviously it depends. The guys that are natural, they could probably get down to like 4. Andreas Munzer, granted, this guy died because of all the stuff he was taking, and they said that during the autopsy, his organs were mush. So I would never recommend that. That's kind of why I say stay away from that kind of stuff. I mean, the guy looked incredible, 3% body fat. The guy was just diced, just ridiculous. However, it is important to note that if you want to get to 10% body fat, you're probably going to be pretty shredded. And as far as sustainability goes, you're probably better off just kind of being around that area, anyways. 8% body fat obviously is attainable as well. But actually, 8% body fat, I mean, you're kind of pushing it, man. You're kind of pushing it. However, if you're able to just adjust your life so that you can basically maintain that physique, hey, kudos to you. For me, I find it kind of difficult. I like pizza. I like eating with my kids. So when I get to about 10% body fat, that's kind of where I just say, hey, you know what? This is good enough. Like, I'm happy there and I'm content and I can live my life, right? Going back to the weight scale, the food scale, the food scale will reveal where you are screwing up, which is why I recommend it so much. I had another conversation with a young lady today and I said, hey, so you have your weight scale? Because we are talking about cutting, right? And obviously I'm like, hey, I start cutting for summer. This is usually when I start doing it. So I have enough time to do it comfortably where I don't got to, like just get on a hardcore carb cycle for like, you know, 2 months where you're eating cardboard. It's not the funnest thing to do. And I told her, I'm like, yeah, I've just been using my weight scale, my food scale to make sure that I'm able to quantify everything that's coming in through my mouth to make sure that I know exactly what's coming in, man, so that I can know how much body fat. I can just track everything. If you're not tracking everything, man, down to the calorie, you're going to be a little bit lost. Obviously, there's certain things that I may put on my food a little bit more, like some sugar-free ketchup, a little bit more than I should, but whatever. It's not the greatest thing for you. However, it will help me to get to my goals right now. And the thing that struck me with the conversation that I had with her, I'm like, oh, so you got a food scale too. She's not in the best shape, right? She's not in the best shape, but we were talking about fitness and I was just kind of like telling her how I use my scale. And I'm like, hey, so you got one too? And she's like, oh yeah, it's brand new. And I'm like, oh, really? So you're going to start cutting now as well? And she's like, oh yeah. Actually, you know what? I weighed my food one time and I did not like the fact that it was so high. So I just put it back in the box. I'm like, when did you get this scale? And she's like, 3 years ago. And it blew my mind because I'm like, yo, you're at like 30%. No, maybe not 30. That's kind of mean. Maybe about 25% body fat. And the chick's, she's about 5'6", 5'5", maybe, and it just blew me away that you have one of the most powerful tools that you can use. But when you're confronted with the truth, you'd rather put it in that box and just pretend it doesn't exist. And, that's one of the things that blows my mind. But if you're able to hold yourself accountable and face the truth that, hey, I'm probably consuming more than I should, that's where the scale really works its magic. And this is why I think it's a silver bullet when it comes to fat burning, is that it will tell you exactly what's coming in, man. And you won't be able to sugarcoat it. You can't lie, you can't prance around it, you can't dance around it. It's right there in your face, and it's like wham bam and thank you, ma'am. You're about to eat 30 grams of or actually probably more like 100 grams of chicken breast. It's going to have X amount of calories. It's going to have X amount of proteins. You're going to put that into your FitnessPal, my FitnessPal app, and it's going to tell you exactly how much you are consuming, which is why I say if you're going to spend $70 to $100 on a fat burner, don't do it. Don't do it unless maybe you're at 10% body fat and you really want to reach that next level. But if you're not, if you're just starting off, man, I'm telling you, download my FitnessPal. It is completely free unless you get like the upgraded version, which I don't have. I just got the normal free version and I got my weight scale. And those two things are helping me to burn fat, right? Helping me to like lose weight. And it's a slow process. The other thing you got to do as well is be patient, right? So, hey, man, that's what it comes down to. When it comes to fat burning, a lot of people are complicating it and thinking that I got to take in special supplements and all these different things that aren't necessary, man. When you boil it down to the core, sure, a lot of people will dispute this, but I truly believe that if you track your calories, right, that's number one. Track your calories. What's coming in, right? What are you eating? Check up on your stress levels. Are you stressed out? Because, hey, that's going to get in the way of things. And I think the third biggest thing for me, which is, I mean, this has made a massive difference, is how much protein are you consuming, right? A lot of people are over consuming highly processed, very palatable foods that have like zero to no nutritional value, man. You almost got to view it like a credit card, like an apple, right? May cost you $100. And let's say a donut will cost you $100. The difference is that apple, right, is loaded with micronutrients and all kinds of wonderful things, right? Whereas that donut, you spent $100, you have $1,000 throughout the day, but that you ate that one donut and you're like, you know what, that donut ain't that, I didn't really hit the spot. I need another two. Next thing you know, you've spent $300. You only got 700 caloric dollars left. And you go and you have a normal meal, you have your lunch, and you have some juice. A lot of people overconsume via liquid calories, right? It's like, I'm going to go to Starbucks and get that caramel macchiato. That's like 500 calories. Between that and the donuts, that's like 800 calories, man. And it seems kind of unreal until people start tracking what they're eating, man. And it's super, super important, right? My point is this: if you eat calorically dense foods that are loaded with micronutrients and for the most part come from the ground, man, like come from earth, that the good earth, old earth provided for you, they're going to be loaded with all kinds of good things. The highly processed stuff is going to be loaded with calories that contain nothing. So a lot of obese people are suffering and they're like, yo, I'm constantly hungry. And the reason for it is that their body's saying, feed me, but feed me something good, right? If you keep feeding yourself and you keep consuming empty calories, your body will never, ever, ever, really reach that point of satisfaction. It's going to keep telling you to eat. Whereas if you make that switch, you start eating good food, right? Your body, won't really crave any more food because like, hey, you know what? I got the food that I need and I will be able to survive just fine off of this. I will thrive off this, not just survive. I will do spectacular. Right. And that's the one thing that I feel is missing and why so many people are gaining weight. And I think I don't know how many people are obese in the United States. Last I checked, I think it was over 40%, like North America are overweight or obese, right? And that's a scary statistic because we're starting to see it more and more in kids, which is why when it comes to feeding my children, dude, I am strict for the most part. I mean, obviously they can have good food, but you know what? I give them not calorically dense food, but just food that's rich in nutrients, man. Like it's got to have the good stuff. It's got to, it's got to have that protein in there too. It can't be absent of these things. And we can't expect people to thrive if they're eating as bad as they are. Because at the end of the day, it's malnutrition, which is ironic because if you live in North America, this is one of the most developed places on earth, man. If you live out here, you can't really complain. This is North America is probably one of the greatest places to live just because of all the opportunities. I mean, the food we got. I mean, I cannot complain. However, it's on us to make sure we can navigate through these murky seas at times and just eat what's best for us. So again, just get yourself a weight scale if you're willing to spend $700, right? Spend it on that weight scale. You will not regret it. And the last thing I'll leave you guys with is be honest to yourself. Be honest when you are weighing your food. I've been there, man. I've lied to myself too. Like, oh, you know what? I'm just going to have one more teaspoon of this delicious chocolate icing. I may have another cupcake and maybe I won't put it in my journal. But that's usually when you'll realize, like, hey, how come I'm not losing weight? If you hold yourself accountable and you take a look back, you take a step back, and you're like, bro, I know I had that cupcake. I know I had that cheesecake, man. And you can do one or two things is in the future, you can just not consume that cheesecake. You can be mentally strong, right? Check upon yourself and say, hey, you know what? No, man, I got a goal. I want to achieve it. And if you do want to eat it, put it on that scale. Look it up and say, okay, I'm going to eat about 200 grams of cheesecake. This equals X amount of calories. All right, man. Well, if it fits your macros, old school diet for anybody that remembers that, and you just you just punch it in, right? And you're like, okay, well, you know what? I spent 400 of my caloric dollars today. And now I only got 1,600 or 1,700 left. So I best spend them wisely, right? But if you hold yourself accountable, you're truthful with what you're consuming, you should be able to lose weight. Granted, everybody's different. And I understand the fact that there may be people that are metabolically damaged, right? There's people that may be suffering from a stressful life, people that are not sleeping enough, which is not something I addressed today. But hey, man, sleep is massively underrated and something that a lot of people don't realize. Like I mentioned before, Sean Stevenson's book, Sleep Better, I believe. Man, where the guy basically just breaks down the importance of sleep and why we need to get better at sleep hygiene, right? And I know, I mean, anybody that's busy, children, life, it's difficult, but it is possible. So again, on that note, guys, when it comes to burning fat, the weight scale paired with MyFitnessPal is your silver bullet. You don't need to take a hardcore thermogenic. You don't need to take any one of these drugs. You don't got to take them. You just got to be honest to yourself and realize that what you're consuming may not be good for you, and just make that switch when it's necessary. All right. On that note, I want you guys to stay safe and keep hitting me up via Instagram at masculine.health.solutions.pe or hit me up at masculinehealthsolutions.com. You can contact me through there. Again, guys, I wish you guys the best. Stay safe and stay healthy during these crazy times. Do the best that you possibly can for you and your family. On that note, guys, I'm out. Next episode will be coming out soon.